How we doing, everybody? This weekend is, of course, the final UFC pay-per-view of the year. UFC 310 goes down in Las Vegas. Top of the bill, it is a UFC debutant, Kai Asakura, taking on Alexander Pantoja. There's two undefeated fighters in the co-main event. Ian Machado Garry versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. We got the Ciryl Gane returning in the heavyweight. Bryce Mitchell returns after a year away from the octagon. And top to bottom, it is a tremendous night of fights. I'm telling you, the prelims on UFC 310 is probably the greatest prelim card that we've ever seen on any UFC event. We've got multiple champions, Chris Weidman, we've got Aljamain Sterling, we've got undefeated people like Movsar Evloev, veterans like Dominic Reyes and Anthony Smith, who both fought John Jones for the belt. And as I say, that's just the prelim. So we're going to go through all the fights, starting at the main event and working our way down. I'll give you a quick breakdown and tell you who I think wins these fights. So let's get into it. Alexander Pantoja is making his third ever UFC title defense. Now, he's fighting a UFC debutant, as we know. Kai Asakura comes from Rising, lives in Japan, a tremendous martial artist, but he's more of a striker than anything else. Okay, of course he can do all the other bits. He can wrestle and do jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, but the striking is where he gets the job done. Big power in his hands. I just have a look at his record right here to refresh myself. Massive power in his hands. You might have seen on the Countdown show that he got into fighting through his brother, who was a street fighter. And it showed some footage of his brother that was a street fighter beating the shit out of the people. And then him and his brother went at it in the streets, and he gave a good account of himself. And that's when he figured out, hold on, I can do this. And he can do this. 25 professional fights, 21 wins, 4 losses on the record, 13 knockouts. This man has fast hands, powerful knees to the body. Last time out against Juan Archer, led a beautiful knee to the midsection at the Saitama Super Arena in Japan, New Year's Eve. But it's been quite a while since he fought, and coming over to the UFC, there is very big differences. Mainly the fact it's a cage and not a ring. Now, I did a video about this recently. That changes a lot of things, and mainly when it comes to the takedown defense. Of course, we all heard of the UFC jitters, okay? A man that's had 25 fights should be used to the bright lights and the big stage feeling. You know, the Saitama Super Arena, massive crowds go and watch those events. So I don't think the crowd's going to be the big thing, but the mental obstacle for Kai Asakura is going to be what the UFC represents. It represents a real opportunity to make proper life-changing money and get the worldwide recognition. Yeah, sure, in Rising, great to be a champion there, but the UFC championship, that's the #1 title in all of combat sports. I don't care what anyone says, that's a fact. So Pantoja typically uses the wrestling to get the job done. Of course, he can strike. The man has got 8 knockouts on his record, 10 submissions on the ground. He does wonderful work. And he's kind of cleaned out the division. He's beaten Brandon Moreno, Brandon Royval. Brandon Royval he's beaten twice, Alex Perez, Manel Kopp, you name it, been through all of them. That's why Kai Asakura is getting a shot, okay? Because it's fresh blood. And people like Brandon Royval, they can't wait. They are hoping that Asakura pulls it off, gets the job done, gets the knockout, because that gives them a crack at the title shot once more. Now, who wins that fight? Listen, there is a world where Kai Asakura can go out there and knock this guy out in the first round. He's going to be excited. He's going to be swinging for the fences. And I love the way that Asakura commits to every shot. He truly swings. He's very powerful. He's very fast. But more than likely, Pantoja is going to get a hold of him. He's going to engage in a clinch, push him up against the fence. And I said this in the last video. Against the fence, this is where he's going to have problems because it takes time to adapt to fighting in a cage. When you're fighting in a ring and you sprawl, your feet can go under the rings of the rope, okay? Can't do that in a cage. So Pantoja's going to get a body lock. He's probably going to work his way down, get the arms around the legs, pick him up, put him down. More than likely get a submission, round 2, round 3, something like that. That would be my prediction for that one. I think Pantoja makes his third successful title defense. All right, this weekend is the final UFC pay-per-view of the year. The Flyweight champion is defending for the 3rd time against Kai Asakura, a UFC newcomer that's knocking people out in Japan, and he's a champion over there as well. Now, if you want to get in on the action, I've partnered with DraftKings Sportsbook, and I have got an incredible offer for you. New customers that download the app, use the promo code Bisping, bet $5, and you will receive $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use the promo code Bisping, as I said, and the crowd could be yours. Now, we've got champions on the prelims, people like Chris Weidman, Aljamain Sterling, and if you've got an idea who might win these fights and you want to get in on the action, then the DraftKings Sportsbook is the place to do that. Download the app, use the promo code Bisping, bet $5 on any fight, receive $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. And by the way, if sports betting is not yet available in your state, then don't worry. DraftKings is the one-stop shop for all things daily fantasy, where you can join in on all the fun and have a shot to win cash prizes. As I said, new customers can bet just $5 on anything and receive $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins with a promo code Bisping, only at DraftKings. Prior to that, co-main event, Ian Machado Garry, Shavkat Rakhmonov. Now, first of all, let's talk about Ian Garry. This man gets a lot of shit online, and granted, he deserves some of it. He's cocky, he's young, he's undefeated, he's chatting wild shit, he gives none of his opponents any respect, okay? And that's the fight game. You know, he's doing things like leaving pizzas outside his opponent's room when they're cutting weight and stuff like that.
Hence the night before weigh-ins, I've got a little present for D-Rod.
That's funny stuff. You know, you messing with your opponents, I have no problem with that. He has come under the criticism of a lot of people online, and people going at his wife and talking shit about his family and stuff like that. And as I say, he can rub people up the wrong way. But when it comes to the fighting side of things, got to respect Ian Garry for taking this fight. Remember, he was matched up against Joaquin Buckley. Now, Joaquin Buckley's not an easy man to beat, but he's not Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's not 18-0 with 18 finishes, and a man that's as tall as you, as long as you, as quick as you, with more fights and a longer winning streak, okay? Ian Machado Garry volunteered. He said, yeah, put me in. I'll take that, because he knows what beating Shavkat represents. You beat Shavkat, you're fighting for the belt next. And Shavkat, if he beats Garry, he's fighting for the belt next. 15-0 versus 18-0. Someone's always got to go, and I'm telling you, it's going to be Machado.
His palm spaghetti, knees weak, arms spaghetti.
I respect Ian Garry for taking this fight, I really do, but Shavkat just finds a way to win. They both have an opponent in common. That opponent is Jeff Neal. What did Ian Garry do? He was smart. He used a great game plan. He stuck and he moved. He used his reach, used his range, danced around the octagon, frustrated his opponent, frustrated the audience. But that doesn't matter. He was very disciplined and he got the job done. When Shavkat Rakhmonov fought Jeff Neal, he engaged. He didn't care about the punch power. And granted, Jeff Neal cracked him a couple of times, but Shavkat was able to get a hold of him, able to wrap the arms around the neck and got the choke. And that's what Shavkat usually does. The man is a finishing machine. Every single one of his fights, he finds a way to win. Rear naked choke in the last 3 fights, or chokes. Stephen Thompson, Jeff Neal, rear nakeds. Neil Magny, guillotine choke, knocked out Carlston Harris. Michel Prazeres was another rear naked choke, and a guillotine over Alex Oliveira. Now, granted, those names, they're not big names, but he's slowly working his way up. And Ian Garry will be the toughest test of his career. And if Ian Garry does it, fair play. And all you people that are talking shit, it's time to put respect on this name. However, I don't think he does. I think Shavkat probably gets him down to the ground. I think he's going to engage. He's going to cut the cage off. He's going to counter the kicks. He's going to push forward, get a clinch, drag him down, just like Pantoja is going to do it. It's a very, very similar path to victory. However, I think Garry is going to be harder to find. I think he's going to be more disciplined. He's going to be dancing around the place, where Asakura is going to go at Pantoja. That's going to be the difference there. Okay, moving on. So I've got Shavkat, I've got Pantoja. Ciryl Gane makes the return to the octagon after almost, 18 months away, something like that. Last time we saw him against Sergey Spivak. Beautiful finish in Paris. Went out there, destroyed the polar bear. But he's kind of been forgotten about in the heavyweight division, okay? He wants to reinsert himself, okay? We're all talking John Jones and Tom Aspinall. That fight, my prediction, goes down International Fight Week next year. I can't wait for it. Ciryl Gane is the #2 ranked heavyweight on the planet, and he wants to be in those conversations. He wants to be a guy to get a crack at John Jones or Tom Aspinall, whoever wins that fight. So Ciryl Gane here is under a bit of pressure because A, he's already beaten Alexander Volkov, but that was a 5-round main event, okay? This time it's 3 rounds. He can't afford a slow start. Ciryl Gane is the better athlete. Ciryl Gane is probably the better striker. But Volkov's getting better all the time. That performance that he had in Saudi Arabia against Sergey Pavlovich, that was really, really nice work, using the length, using the reach, beautiful boxing, kept him on the end of the shots and just picked him apart the whole fight. Ciryl Gane can't mess around. He's got to get in there, he's got to be explosive, and he's got to be dangerous. I do have Ciryl Gane winning this fight. He's beat him once, he'll beat him again. If he does beat him, I think it will be via decision. I don't think he knocks him out. However, if he takes his time, I might be wrong. Volkov might do it. Volkov could emerge as the next guy, which is crazy because Tom Aspinall wiped the floor with Alexander Volkov. But all fights are different. We got to remember that. Every time two men step in the octagon, it's not always going to be the same result. And Ciryl Gane needs to remember that when he fights Volkov. He lost the first 2 rounds. In this one, he's got to be careful and he can't afford to lose the very first round before the fight even starts. All right, moving on, it's Bryce Mitchell versus Krone Gracie. Now, this one's a really interesting matchup. Krone Gracie, of course, the son of the legendary fighter Rickson Gracie, and of course, the last man standing when it comes to representing the Gracie family. There's a lot of pressure on this man's shoulders. 1 and 2 in the UFC, so the pressure's on this man. Had a successful UFC debut, choked out Alex Caceres in the second round. Then he went up against 2 dynamic strikers, Cub Swanson and Charles Jourdain. And their game plan was simple. Do not go to the floor with this man. Simple as that. And they did that under any cost. Now, Krone Gracie is a nasty bastard in there. When he was there with Cub Swanson, that was a very competitive fight. Krone Gracie was swinging for the fences, landing some heavy blows. But Cub Swanson got the job done, avoided the ground game, and got a win. Now, Bryce Mitchell, he sees that fight differently.
But I'm just saying this. If the fight was in Walmart, Cub versus Krone, he walked his ass out the door. He walked his ass out the parking lot. He walked his ass past the gas station. I mean, he moved forward the whole fight. How can you say that he really lost the fight?
I disagree with Bryce Mitchell there, but Bryce Mitchell, he's got a lot of opinions that I don't agree with. I love this guy. He's out of his mind. And if you haven't seen the video that I did, the interview the other day where he calls Elon Musk the devil, you got to check that one out. Anyway, Bryce Mitchell is 16-2, okay? And yes, last time we saw him, he got knocked out viciously by the one and only Josh Emmett, probably the hardest hitting guy in the featherweight division. And that, of course, is a crazy shout when you consider that Ilia Topuria is the champion and just knocked out Max Holloway. But I'm telling you what, Josh Emmett certainly gives him a run for his money when it comes to sheer power. Josh Emmett's force is ridiculous, so there was no shame there. And the other loss came to Ilia Topuria. Between those, he did get a win over Dan Ige. Certainly no shame in losing those 2 fights. And now Bryce Mitchell's taking a year away. He's built himself a house. He's living on the farm. He's raising animals and cattle and this and that. And the man's hungry. And he's coming to fight Krone Gracie. He said, I don't care where this fight takes place, brother, or something like that. He doesn't give a shit. He's going to fight this man. Wherever that takes place, wherever that needs to be, wherever Krone Gracie wants to dance, that's where Bryce Mitchell is going to do it. And I do believe Bryce Mitchell will get it done. He's got more experience. I believe he's got the grappling to shut down Krone Gracie. I mean, for example, look at this. Charles Oliveira, the most submissions in UFC history. He was beaten by Paul Felder. Not shitting on Paul Felder. Paul Felder had a very smart game plan. He operated inside the guard. He closed him down. He used bicep control, chipped away with elbows, and got the victory, okay? I believe Bryce Mitchell can do the same thing. And then, of course, opening up the main card, we have the one, the only Nate Landwehr. Choo-choo, motherfuckers, let's go. I love this guy. All-out action every time you see him fight, and he doesn't care. This man wants to put on a show, and he's going up against the Korean Superboy that had the fight of the year when he went up against the aforementioned Cub Swanson. But he disappeared for a while, went to the military, 4 years in the Korean Navy, but then he came back and took out Bill Algeo last time out in the second round. The Korean Superboy is not a man to take lightly, but going up against Nate the Train, listen, he might have his hands full here. Last time we saw Nate was against Jamal Lemmers. Again, first round knockout. There's a reason why these guys are opening up the main card. Not the biggest names, granted. Nate the Train is slowly plugging away. He is a showman. He thrills the crowds and the audiences. But inside the octagon, the man is a finisher. 18 stoppages out of 23 victories. And I believe this one, Nate the Train gets the job done. Although I'm not too sure. The Korean Superboy, he's got some real good power in his hands. Now, as I mentioned, the prelims, they're amazing as well. And there's a guy on the prelims, Anthony Smith, that I'm very close with. I do the podcast with. And I'm worried and I'm nervous about him in this fight. That's not to say that I don't think he can get this done. I believe Anthony Smith, on his best night, the best version of himself, the version that we saw taking out Alexander Gustafsson, that person can beat pretty much anybody on the planet. Last time out against Roman Dolidze wasn't his best performance, and he'll admit that. He took that fight on short notice, took another one against Vitor Petrino on short notice, and choked him out in the very first round in 2 minutes with a beautiful guillotine. I think that's why he jumped in short notice again. And before that, he took a short notice fight against Khalil Roundtree and, of course, lost in the third round, okay? No shame there. Khalil Roundtree pushed Pereira to the limit. Those first 2 rounds, I had Khalil winning that. So as I say, there's certainly no shame. But Anthony, he needs a win here. And he knows that. And the pressure is on. And that's why he's left no stone unturned when it comes to the training. He is hungry. He wants that win. He wants to be respected. And he wants to get back in the title conversation. That's why he's been training all over the place, going and training with Stipe Miocic at his gym. He also teamed up with Dean Thomas to give him a fresh perspective on everything. Dean Thomas is an old school guy, trains a lot of good fighters, and he's got so much experience and just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to mixed martial arts. So I expect Anthony to come into this one in the best shape that we've seen him for a long time, because that's kind of what's affected him. Now, on the flip side, when we look at Dominic Reyes, this man was on fire, running through everybody, knocked out Chris Weidman. That got him a title fight against John Jones. Showed up against John Jones, arguably beat John Jones, but he didn't. He lost the decision. Then he got knocked out against Jan Blachowicz, a former champion. Got knocked out against Yuri Prochazka, was on a highlight reel, the double spinning elbow, a former champion. And then, of course, lost via knockout in the first round to Ryan Spann. Then he took 2 years away, came out for Dustin Jacoby, a very experienced and talented and dangerous kickboxer, and got a knockout in the very first round. So that's why I'm worried for Anthony Smith, because I'm a friend. Anytime a friend competes, you get a little bit nervous for them. I do believe if Anthony shows up in the shape that he says that he's going to, if he's done all the work that he says he's been doing, I firmly believe that Anthony Smith goes out there and wins the decision. Dominic Reyes is a hard man to finish. Yes, I know he got knocked out a couple of times, but still, that doesn't mean the man's done. Doesn't mean he's finished. It means he's going to show up, because he knows that Anthony Smith probably holds, for him, the keys to the title conversation again. What do you think about that? Who do you think wins the main event? Who do you think wins all of these fights? Thank you for watching. Subscribe and ring the bell. I will see you soon.